What would you say, if you were to think about sort of the crux or even the beginning really of when this was driven home for you in your life? Like, what was the first story that you remember was a big impact on your childhood? I know I've heard a lot about your grandfather making a huge impact on you. Martin Luther King obviously is somebody that you greatly admire as well. But what was the first story you remember that you were like, yep, that's when I knew I'd be a story strategist?
All right, so the first story that I'm thinking about was one that was an absolute disaster for me personally. And I think sometimes pain is a great motivator, and it's something that we very much remember. So for me, I had just landed a job working for a very influential politician, and I was told that this job was going to be data and research focused, that it was going to involve very little human interaction. I was not a people person at that time. I hated being in front of people. I failed my public speaking course in college. I literally got the worst grade I didn't even finish because I gave my first speech. It went horrific. And I remember going to the back of the room and sitting down and saying, I'll take the F. So I hated being in front of people and doing any kind of public speaking, which is kind of funny because that's what I do as a profession today.
Right.
But I was working for this gentleman and I was involved in a research project for him, and he said to me, hey, I have something to do on such and such a day. There's a group of people that are meeting that want answers in regard to this project. Okay, and I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, but I just want you to be aware, the people at this meeting despise the ideas surrounding this. And they hate me as a person, so more than likely death by association, they're gonna hate you too.
Oh, no,
Okay?
no pressure.
So choose your words very, very wisely. And it was, as you can imagine, a disaster. I couldn't sleep leading up to the meeting. This meeting took place and, sweaty palms, I was stuttering, I didn't know what to say. And I remember running back to my car, slamming the door and yelling at the top of my lungs, that'll never happen again. I'm going to learn how to connect with people. So that's when I shifted my focus and this obsession started in me, where it was how do some people connect and some fall flat. And I recognized everyone had a reoccurring theme. It doesn't matter what leader that you point to that can be vibrant and rah-rah and get people's attention and inspire, it all came down to storytelling. Were they masterful at storytelling? And then I realized all I need to do is study storytelling, and then I'm going to be able to connect with audiences.
So your storytelling really came from studying other people doing great storytelling, and then you picked it apart to figure out, okay, what are the elements here that are at play?
Yeah, so I picked it apart to figure out what they were doing. And then because I was already in the political world and I was working for different politicians and I had those relationships, I was sharing with them different things that they could do. And then that's when I started the speech writing journey. And I'd done political speech writing for over a decade for numerous politicians, basically sharing with them, do this and you will experience this. For me personally, I was going to events and I was testing things before I would recommend it to them. So every single event I could speak at under the sun, whether it was a networking event, whether different organizations allow certain speakers to come in, there were story slams. Story slams take place across the country in different cities. I would go to every single one I possibly could, and I was just testing. Because for me personally, I felt better if I failed, I could figure out what to do so that my clients wouldn't fail.
Yeah.
And then figured out different aspects of storytelling, and then it went on from there.
I love that because I think so often when we're going to try something new, particularly when it feels scary, and public speaking, as we all know, is like second only to death in the sheer fear that we feel before it for most people. But what I love about that is that you jumped in to try it and get the reps in. And I think that's the best, fastest way to learn. Whereas a lot of people will approach it differently where they're like, okay, well, let me use a framework already. Right? And I know I'm going to be great at it right away. But the reality is, as with anything, I mean, pick a topic. It's all about getting the reps in and failing a little and trying again. And I'm a firm believer in that quote of, you never really lose. You either win or you learn. But I think what's really cool about your story and about how this system all really developed was we just jumped in and we learned some things along the way and we got the reps in. And now what used to feel very daunting, so in this case, building a story bank like you're talking about, I would think, gosh, like, what stories do I really have? You know, and I would sit at my computer and I'd say, okay, I'm going to write a story right now. And I'll pick something to write about. I'll write about, grit and determination or coming back from a failure or something. And it would take me an hour plus. And I'd be hemming and hawing and really trying to get the meaning out of it. And now it's like a muscle. It's like I can sit down at a computer and say, I'm going to pump out some stories. I'm going to really kind of go back through my experience and think about what somebody needs to hear today or think about a specific topic. And I'm actually really quickly able to write those stories now, which before took me forever. But now it's like a muscle. It's like something you practice.
Sure.
Yeah.